And Halcyon. Anybody happen to know what that word means? It denotes tranquility and peace. The days of Halcyon, maybe you've heard of that before. It means a time of just calm waters. The idea behind Halcyon EAP is helping you find that place of calm waters, peace of mind. Guess what? It's actually attainable. I am not a clinician. I'm not here to tell you how, but I may sprinkle a few stress management tips that I have learned by working here, you know, and attending a lot of classes, by the way, too, and lunch and learn seminars and that sort of thing. But what I'm really here to do, as Cindy mentioned, is to tell you all about your benefit and make sure that you really know what it is and how to access it. You have had an EAP in the past. I'm going to explain to you Halcyon EAP. By the way, we are headquartered here in Fresno. We know the community well. We know the resources well. We can provide you, just as the name implies, assistance. You are the employee. This is a program. We will provide assistance. Just as a note, EAPs were started during World War II in the 1940s because people were now working at companies, right? They were coming off the farms and they were going to work in cities. And employers noticed that their employees had lives, that they had struggles, that they had things. And maybe it was showing up because of substance abuse showing up at the workplace. And the employer needed an outside resource for some support. EAPs were formed. Over the years, they've kind of broad brushed beyond just counseling, and I'll go into that and I'll explain some of the different resources that you can find through using Halcyon EAP. By the way, too, I've got the brochure in hand. These you can pick up at the end. There are trifold brochures that are in English and Spanish, and there's a little punch-out wallet card with our phone number on it for the triage line. Okay? The pens, the notepads are yours to keep, but I promise I'm not going to do any role-playing or have you take a test or anything like that. It's just for you to have and enjoy, okay? So back to Halcyon. Your employer has decided to provide this. Sunrise Medical invited us in to be your program. They are giving you this access to free counseling. You have 3 free visits per issue of what you might be going through every 6 months. The benefit, you're all automatically enrolled in, but it extends beyond you to anybody that lives under your roof, whether they're on your insurance or not. My 34-year-old son moves home with me and he's going through a breakup. If he's struggling, is it not going to be impacting me, right? It's heavy on my heart and in my mind. The idea again is bringing me to a place of peace, conflict resolution, calm waters. My son can call in and access the benefit and go and see a local provider free of charge, just as I would. If your children are over 18, there are the HIPAA privacy laws, which, by the way, this is a completely confidential program. I will never know if you use it. Nobody in HR here will ever know in any way, shape, or form if you use it. Under 18, you can call in. So if you notice that your child is struggling, let's say they're a junior high student, and all of a sudden they're coming home with a new set of friends, and their grades are slipping, and they're not sleeping well at night, a real sure sign of stress is that you're waking up at nighttime. This applies to adults too. Get them the help that they need early on. The idea behind EAPs is actually kind of an early intervention at the first sign of struggle. So let's talk a little bit about unresolved stress. What does it look like? Well, physically, it'll take a toll on us. There are studies that prove that stress can lead to heart disease. You've read these probably. Cancer. Did you know that the early onset of arthritis is actually tied to stress? Why do you think that would be? What do you do if you're stressed sometimes? Some of you may do this. Pop your neck? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Yeah. Pop your neck. Some people do that, huh? Cracking their knuckles and things like that. Good one. Tense up. Tense, like this. And what you're doing actually is forgetting to breathe. That's why some people like meditation and yoga, because it reminds them to breathe and relax, calm down. I was mentioning at the last meeting that we have law enforcement sometimes go out and do stress management seminars on our behalf. Early on, I learned that the psychologists weren't the best ones to stand up in front of a room full of people because they're kind of one-on-one type people. So law enforcement loves to put on different things, and they're very theatrical, and they have a great presence. And they, by the way, have very stressful jobs, and they've learned how to cope with and manage their stress. They do a thing called tactical breathing. Have any of you ever heard of Lamaze? They're one and the same. But you think that they're going to call deep breathing Lamaze for these, cadets that are going through? No, they teach them tactical breathing, taking a deep breath and calming your system down. I've just given you a tip, but you may go and speak to a counselor to get some stress management tips that work for you. It's about finding what is going to make your life a little more pleasurable, prevent some disease, and you don't have to raise your hands on this, and you are eating lunch, but we all know that there are different digestive problems that are linked to stress. Unresolved stress can end up in a diagnosis for a mental health condition like depression or anxiety. What could have been prevented by early on going and speaking to somebody and working through it and having that aha moment, because my best friend at work and I might talk, and he's going to validate, you've got a lot of problems. Boy, do you have issues. But he's not my dad. He's not my therapist. He's not my priest, as far as I can tell. He is not trained in the field of psychology as our contracted providers are. And by the way, they all have different areas of expertise. Some work with teenagers. Some work with grief issues. Some work with communication things. He doesn't understand me. And I'm getting really frustrated every day coming in and saying the same thing to him again, and he doesn't understand me. Now, that may wake me up at nighttime, and I'm trying to process it and think through different ways. But what I'm doing is thinking about that issue of lack of communication in the same way over and over and over again. I might go and speak to my therapist, and she says, well, have you thought of this? And all of a sudden, that light bulb, it comes on. Because our brains tend to ruminate. Have you ever heard that word before, ruminate? It means that you're looking at something from the same exact angle over and over again. You think you're processing it, but no, what you're doing is looking at it in the same perspective. And just as a note, EAPs recognize that life is full of change, and that's what typically causes stress, right? All day long, we are confronted with conflict. Should I get up out of bed in the morning or not? Here are my decisions every morning, right? Should I or shouldn't I? Well, experience has taught me that if I don't get up out of bed in the morning, I may lose my job if I don't show up at work, right? I know how certain things work, and we are all creatures of habit. I know that I need to eat breakfast, or I get really hangry around 10 o'clock in the morning. I know that I need 2 cups of coffee. I know these things because I have prior experience. But life throws curveballs. And maybe you have experience with something, and you've had experience with it, and you've had experience with it, but it's brand new to me. No problem in that. I just don't have an experience and the perspective, therefore, of dealing with a conflict. And that's what precipitates the need for speaking with a professional that's trained in that area to help you manage that stress and to work through it. So back to the process. Calling in, 800 number. We have licensed clinicians that have a minimum of a master's degree doing our triage. They are answering the phone, taking your information. They, by the way, are located outside of Fresno County because this is about the smallest community ever still. We all kind of are related in some way, shape, or form, it seems like, or know of each other. You don't want to call in and have your neighbor say, well, now I know why you weren't putting the garbage cans back away for the past 3 months. You won't get anybody you know whatsoever. So you call in, and they do around a 20-minute assessment, evaluation, speaking with you, and kind of learning. You work at Sunrise Medical. You would like to speak to a female. Your insurance carrier is Cigna, Kaiser, whatever you have. Is there a health net also? No, just those two, okay. To the best of our ability, if you have Cigna, we're going to help you find somebody that accepts the Cigna network as well. But it may be that the person most suited for you to speak with is within the Halcyon network, and possibly they accept Cigna, maybe not. We would love, in the best of both or perfect worlds, to have enough Cigna providers. We have a large network. We have a very large network of providers. Again, it's going to be the best fit. And by the way, too, if you ever call in and you get a referral to one of our providers and the fit isn't right, that rapport is just not there in communication, you may call back in. You don't have to provide any information, no questions asked. You get a new referral to somebody who's going to be more helpful. At the end of the day, that's what we want, is for it to help. So, 3 visits per issue. I get a referral in February to somebody who has in their repertoire relationship issues. Maybe it's my marriage. I want to speak to somebody, and I go in and I see them for 3 visits, but then in May, I'd like to speak to somebody because I had suffered a tragedy and I'd like a grief counselor. This may be a different counselor because they are the one most trained in grief counseling. 3 more free visits, no copay whatsoever. This same benefit, again, is extended to anybody under your roof. Whether they're on your insurance or not, the EAP is free of charge, okay? Along with that may be other resources when you call in. What's one of the things, a different area altogether actually, that wake us up at nighttime, leading cause of marriage breakups actually? What other issues? Money, the finances. Call in, same triage process, a referral then to a financial advisor. It starts off with half an hour on the phone. Maybe your questions are answered within that half hour. Maybe you'd like to retain that professional. It's at a 10% discount. Retirement planning. Take a look at my 401k. Have I done everything? Have I thought of everything? Legal. If you'd like a referral to a local, and again, same thing as far as trying to help you find somebody that's convenient for you to get in and see. If you're closer to Madera, you live closer to Porterville or Lemoore, we're going to make it convenient for you. If you go and speak with an attorney after the first free half hour, maybe you decide you're within your rights. Family law, immigration law, will and estate planning. It's at a 25% discount for the legal, for the attorneys you speak with. Okay. Another area of stress for people is in the area of dependent care. If you have children and you're looking for a child care facility, if you have aging parents and maybe they need memory care, instead of sitting and Google searching all this, or again asking your best friend at work what worked for you, speak to somebody who can tailor it to your needs. Maybe mom lives in Reno, Nevada. You don't have to get up and leave your desk and fly to Reno, Nevada and do all this legwork. Call and get the names of some places. I shared with the last group, my dad had emergency surgery last year for a hernia, and he's at St. Agnes, and I'm working full-time, the only one of 5 kids that lives in Fresno, and I'm thinking, I can do, with a 90-something-year-old man who's quite large, he's paralyzed. I don't know what to do, really, truly. I've never, again, had experience with this, so I didn't have a perspective on how to deal with it. So I called our EAP. We have Halcyon also. I call in, and they, through the dependent care area, told me, did you know that you will have a social worker assigned to you? You can ask any questions that you want, and one of the really important things is to know that you don't want dad to just leave the hospital, because if you do, he can't get into a skilled nursing facility. But they didn't even call it a skilled nursing facility, she said a SNF. What is a SNF? What are you talking about? You know how sometimes in life people just start talking some other language and they know perfectly well what they're talking about, like EAP, but a SNF? she told me, don't let him go home. Now, if I hadn't called in, I wouldn't have known that. I would have taken the time off of work to care for him, and by the way, I wouldn't know what to do to care for a person who's just had this surgery and needs a lot of care. He needed a snip. So, I got him that help. But it's that type of resource that when you're struggling, if your coworker and best friend at work is struggling, you don't know what else to say, you can remind them that they have this benefit. If you are a manager or supervisor, you know the signs that somebody's struggling, right? They're showing up late for work and they never had. They're not even coming in because they legitimately are sick, because what does stress do to you? Attacks your immune system and makes you sick. Whatever it is that's going on, you can be that guiding hand that reminds them, because a lot of times when we are sick ourselves, we're our worst advocates, right? We lay in bed with the flu and we don't remember to take the Tylenol or whatever to make ourselves better. It's the same thing. When you're down and you're low, you don't know how to climb up out of it. Be that friend, that lifeline, supervisor or manager, that says, I want to get you some help, and I know that we've got the EAP, let's just look for some resources. When you pick up one of the brochures, and by the way too, I brought along a lot of tip sheets over here. There are, on the punch-out wallet card is the web address for the member website. Sunrise Medical No Spaces is your login. There are webinars archived on there. There's a new one every month. And so the webinars are all archived. There are tip sheets. You can do a little safe search in there and put in step parenting and bring up a whole lot of information on that. Okay? Legal forms and documents. Whatever it is that for you in your life is going on, look for the resources and the help there. Does anybody have any questions? One area too I'd like to mention, if any of you have children that are going through high school and they're looking for the scholarships and tuition help, the EAP can actually provide all of that information. They'll do the research for you. You've all been great listeners. I can't stress enough that this is a confidential program provided for you by Sunrise Medical, because they truly do care about their employees and want to see you thriving and well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. The fun part, right? Ready to get to the raffle, right?